Have you ever felt like your own emotions were turning against you? One careless word, one unfair glance, and suddenly your chest is heavy, your thoughts are racing, and you're no longer present. You're trapped in a storm you didn't choose. Most of us know that feeling. The quiet frustration after being misunderstood, the sting of disrespect, the weight of regret for words we wish we hadn't said. But what if that storm didn't have to sweep you away? Imagine walking through the same chaos while remaining untouched, calm enough to see clearly, steady enough to act wisely. The Stoics believed this was the highest form of power, not controlling the world, not silencing others, but mastering the only battlefield that truly matters: your own mind. This isn't about becoming cold or shutting down your humanity. It's about carrying your emotions without being carried by them. About choosing your response instead of being ruled by impulse. In a world that reacts instantly to every provocation, restraint becomes a rare strength, and composure becomes an unshakable shield. In this video, we'll explore what it really means to step out of the noise and reclaim that control. So take a breath, settle in, and let's walk this path together. As we step into the first chapter, picture this: a quiet morning that suddenly unravels. A single horn blares in traffic, and the calm you carried into the day shatters. One sharp word from a colleague, one careless gesture from a stranger, and suddenly you're no longer in control. Your chest tightens, your jaw locks, your thoughts scatter like leaves in the wind. And before you realize it, your peace has been handed over to the world, given away cheaply, without resistance. Why is it so easy to lose what took hours to build? Why do we allow a driver on the highway, a delayed message, or a disagreement at work to dictate the entire rhythm of our hearts? Most people live like this. They react to everything, as if every external event carries the right to enter their inner world. But here is where the Stoics drew a line. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Those words are not lofty philosophy, they are survival, because if you cannot control what stirs inside you, you will always be a servant to whatever happens outside you. Now imagine yourself in a crowded room. A co-worker undermines you in front of others. The heat rises instantly. You feel the urge to strike back, to reclaim ground with sharper words. And maybe you do. For a moment, there's satisfaction. You said what you needed to say. But what really happened? You danced to their tune. They played the note, and you moved. That is not victory. That is proof they reached inside and pulled your strings. The one who has trained himself differently doesn't play that game. He meets disrespect with stillness. Not because he is cold, not because he feels nothing, but because he knows every reaction is a choice, and every choice is a seed. React in anger, and you plant chaos. Pause with calm, and you plant strength. Discipline is silent, but it builds walls no insult can break through. It is not fragility, it is focus. Few ever master it. Think of the seasoned chess master. The beginner rushes to respond, driven by urgency, desperate to prove he sees the board. But the master pauses. He studies. He moves only when it serves the larger game. Life is no different. The quick move might soothe your ego, but it often costs you long-term peace. Control is the art of waiting, of refusing to be dragged into battles that do not matter. And here's the paradox. In a world where everyone is quick to ignite, composure becomes magnetic. People can't always explain it, but they respect it. They feel the weight of your silence, the steadiness of your presence, and it unsettles them. Because most people aren't actually seeking resolution, they're seeking reaction. They want to prove they can bend you. When you give them nothing, when you stand as if untouched, you reveal the truth they fear most. You are not theirs to provoke. So the next time the world tempts you into conflict, pause. Picture the chessboard. Remember that you're not here to win every skirmish. You're here to master the game. And mastery begins with the ability to breathe, to wait, and to choose on your terms. From here, we step into a deeper question. What is the hidden cost of letting emotions rule, and how does reclaiming choice change everything? Moving into the second chapter, picture this. You stand in a room where words fly like arrows. Every jab tempts you to defend. Every slight urges you to strike back. Your heart pounds. Your tongue aches to respond. Yet in that very tension lies the choice that defines you. Do you rise to every provocation, or do you step into the quiet power of restraint? Most people believe silence is surrender. They think if you don't argue, you've lost. But the Stoics saw differently. Seneca warned that he who is quick to anger will often pay for it later. They knew the ego craves the last word, but the soul longs for peace, and peace is never found in endless battle. Think about the people you respect the most. They don't storm into rooms announcing themselves. They don't explode at every challenge. They walk in, steady, unreadable, and suddenly the atmosphere bends around them. It isn't loudness that commands the room, it's presence. The kind of presence that cannot be manipulated because it refuses to hand out emotional reactions like coins at a marketplace. That's who you must become. The one who sees through the bait, who reads between the lines, who smiles quietly at attempts to provoke and remains unmoved. Every time you choose calm instead of chaos, you take your power back. Every time you walk away from petty conflict, you protect the energy that should be spent on higher battles. Each insult you refuse to entertain becomes a brick in the foundation of confidence. Over time, no betrayal, no setback, no rejection can shake it, because you've discovered the truth. Your reactions are your responsibility. Once that truth lands, everything changes. You stop blaming others for how you feel. You stop letting someone else's words dictate the climate of your day. You become rooted, immovable, untouchable. This is not numbness, it is mastery. Emotional discipline does not deny anger, disappointment, or frustration. It acknowledges them, then it chooses differently. It forges strength in the discomfort of not giving in. It builds muscle, not in the gym with weights, but in the furnace of daily provocations. When someone disrespects you in public, your instinct is to lash out. But the Stoic pause creates space. Space between stimulus and response, and in that space, your authority returns. Some conflicts are best ignored. Some people deserve your silence more than your explanation. Your energy is too valuable to spend on what cannot change. That is when restraint becomes armor, silent, invisible, but stronger than steel. This practice changes more than confrontations. It shapes how you face failure, rejection, even loss. While others panic, you breathe. While others spiral, you stand. You don't stop caring, you stop being controlled. Indifference is apathy. Discipline is deep care under deep control. It is choosing to protect your peace over protecting your pride. And when this becomes who you are, you no longer need to prove yourself. Your dignity speaks without noise. Your steadiness earns a respect that shouting never could. In the end, the most dangerous one in the room is not the loudest. It is the one who does not flinch. That is restraint. That is power. And from here, the question sharpens. If restraint builds such strength, what happens when we let emotions dictate instead? Advancing to the third chapter, picture this. There are nights when the weight inside you feels unbearable, yet the thought of explaining it to another feels even heavier. You sit in silence, staring at the ceiling, realizing that words could never capture the depth of what you carry. And maybe, just maybe, that silence is not weakness, it is the beginning of strength. The world will urge you to share, to broadcast every wound, to make your pain public property. But there is a rare kind of power in holding your suffering close, in deciding that your healing belongs to you alone. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. In this case, the greatest proof of resilience is not in how loudly you announce your endurance, but in how quietly you hold steady when no one applauds." Silent healing is not denial. It is not pretending to be fine or bottling up emotions until you break. It is the conscious act of protecting a fragile process from the noise of the crowd. Not everyone deserves access to your vulnerability. Not every scar should be displayed for sympathy or consumed as gossip. The deepest transformations do not happen under the lights. They happen in the shadows, when you are alone with your hurt, slowly turning it over until it changes shape into something you can grow from. I once knew a man who lost everything: his business, his marriage, even his sense of direction. He disappeared quietly from the places where he once thrived. People whispered, invented stories, filled the silence with speculation. Months later, he reappeared, leaner, calmer, sharper. He spoke little of what had happened, saying only, "It was a season I needed." But you could feel it, the weight in his presence, the steadiness that only comes from storms weathered alone. That is the kind of change silence can forge. When you stop announcing your pain, you take back control. You deny the world the power to twist your story, to define you by your weakest moment. You refuse to let your hurt become entertainment. Real strength is not in telling people how strong you are. It is in wiping your own tears, standing up the next morning, and walking forward as if no one saw the war you fought the night before. Healing in private also shields you from derailment. Healing bends and twists. It is not linear. There are good days and terrible ones, and when you guard that journey, you protect it from careless advice, from misunderstanding, from judgment. The world doesn't need to see every breakdown, every wave of doubt. What they should see is the outcome, the stronger, wiser, calmer version of you who emerges. And that mystery becomes part of your power. This kind of strength makes you untouchable. When you've proven that you can hold your own weight in the darkest hours, you no longer fear abandonment. You become your own anchor, your own sanctuary. That self-sufficiency is a quiet rebellion in a world addicted to spectacle. You stop chasing validation because you already know your worth. You stop waiting for rescue because you've rescued yourself. And the changes reveal themselves in subtle ways. You speak less, listen more. You stop explaining your value, you live it. People sense the depth, though they cannot name it. That gravity was built in the unseen hours, when you faced yourself and endured. Silent healing is a private forge. It turns pain into steel, scars into proof. And once you've walked through that fire alone, you carry a calm no storm can break. From here, the question is no longer whether you can endure, but how far you can rise now that you no longer need an audience to survive. Here's where the fourth chapter begins. You meet someone whose face reveals nothing, no flicker of irritation, no flash of excitement, no sign of what truly stirs inside. You walk away unsettled, wondering if they were impressed, annoyed, or indifferent. That uncertainty is not an accident. It is power. Power born of discipline, power rooted in control of the inner world so complete that no one else can read it. In a culture that rewards loud reaction and constant display, unreadability is rebellion. Most people broadcast their feelings like billboards. Anger clenches the jaw, envy narrows the eyes, insecurity collapses the shoulders. Even joy spills recklessly, easy to spot, easy to exploit. The Stoics warned against this exposure of the soul. Seneca once wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." Today, adversity often looks like the probing eyes of others, searching for your fears, your desires, your buttons. When they can see what moves you, they can use it. Now, imagine a negotiator at the table. The opponent throws words like darts, speaking fast, pressing hard, waiting for a tell, a frown, a twitch, a rush to answer. But the disciplined man gives nothing. His face is calm, his breath steady. The silence stretches, and suddenly the other side hesitates. Their strategy falters because they are forced to guess, and in guessing, they reveal uncertainty. That pause is the moment when power shifts. Unreadability does not mean being a stone. It does not mean feeling nothing. It means protecting your emotional privacy as if it were sacred. You choose what you reveal. You choose when. That unpredictability is armor in a world that thrives on anticipating your next move. Predictability is a leash. Unreadability is freedom. There is a strange advantage here. People grow cautious around what they cannot read. Manipulators who rely on guilt or provocation retreat when their tools find no purchase. While they waste time deciphering you, you are free to observe them, weigh your options, and act on your terms. This discipline shows in subtle ways. Your face gives away only what you intend. Your tone stays level, steady under pressure. Your body language remains grounded. You speak not to fill the silence, but to shape it. You stop being a page for others to scribble on and become instead a closed book that demands respect. Slowly, boundaries form, not announced, not defended with noise, simply lived. I once watched a leader face a crisis that had his entire team in chaos. Accusations, shouting, fear. Everyone looked to him to pick a side. He did not rush. He listened. He nodded. His face revealed nothing. When he finally spoke, his words were brief and measured. The room shifted instantly. Later, someone asked him how he stayed so calm. He smiled and said, "If they can't read you, they can't lead you." That is the essence of unreadability. Over time, this way of moving changes how people treat you. They stop testing. They tread more carefully. They approach with respect because they recognize you are operating on a different frequency. Emotional discipline becomes presence, and presence, when unshakable, commands without demanding. Unreadability is not coldness. It is control. It is the quiet confidence that your moods, your choices, your very energy belong to you alone. In a world built on pulling strings, there is nothing rarer or more powerful, and from here, the next step emerges, pairing that mystery with clarity of purpose, so that when you do act, the weight of your decision changes the entire game. From here, we step into the fifth chapter. No matter what you do, whether you rise or stumble, whether you speak boldly or stay silent, someone will always have something to say. You could succeed, and they'll call you lucky. You could fail, and they'll call you foolish. If you live tethered to their voices, you will never live at all. Marcus Aurelius once marveled at this contradiction. Every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others. We protect our bodies with instinct, but hand our minds over to strangers without a fight. That is the invisible prison, the one where self-worth hangs on whispers you can't control. Think of the loudest critics you've known. Are they ahead of you, building something greater? Are they carrying the weight of the risks you've dared to take? Or are they standing on the sidelines, dissecting what they cannot understand? Most often, the ones who speak the most are the ones who've moved the least. Gossip is the tax the world charges those who dare to grow. I remember a woman who opened a small shop in a town where everyone knew everyone's business. The whispers came quick. It won't last. She's in over her head. She felt the sting. She wanted to explain herself, to prove them wrong on the spot. But she chose differently. She worked. She endured. 1 year later, her shop had doubled in size. The same people who doubted her now bought from her shelves. She never said, "I told you so." She didn't need to. Her results carried a louder voice than their doubts ever could. That's the truth. If you turn back every time someone calls your name in gossip, you will never move forward. Every person with a purpose has faced criticism. The difference between those who rise and those who stall is simple: the ability to keep walking no matter how loud the background noise grows. Character is not built in applause or in attack. It is built in silence, when you keep showing up, unseen, unpraised, unshaken. Let them talk while you build. Let them laugh while you grow. Let them spend their breath while you sharpen your edge. The more you focus, the less their words can touch you. Detachment from opinion is not arrogance, it is peace. It is the steady recognition that people will misinterpret your silence, your confidence, your resilience, and that's fine. You were never meant to live by their script. The most powerful figures in history were misunderstood in their time. They didn't waste energy chasing approval. They lived in alignment with what they knew to be true, and the world either caught up or fell away. This is emotional maturity, the choice to conserve your energy for what builds you, not what drains you. Picture the most dangerous person in a room. It isn't the loudest. It isn't the one defending themselves in every corner. It's the one who knows they are being talked about and keeps working anyway. Head high, hands steady, soul on fire. That person is unstoppable because they have silenced the need for permission. So let them whisper, let them doubt. Every moment they spend talking about you is a moment they're not improving themselves. And every moment you remain unmoved, you are reclaiming your power. Keep moving until what they mocked becomes what they admire, not because you argued, but because you outgrew the place where their voices mattered. If this truth resonates, drop a simple "unmoved" in the comments. And subscribe if you're ready to keep walking this path of focus and strength. Because in the next step, we'll go deeper into the kind of discipline that not only makes you immune to the noise, but transforms you into someone no one can control. At this stage, imagine yourself standing in the middle of a storm, voices shouting, accusations flying, betrayal cutting deep. Every nerve in your body begs you to react, to lash out, to prove yourself. Yet hours later, you realize the reaction cost more than the wound itself. That is the moment when detachment is no longer a concept, it is salvation. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Detachment is not pretending you don't feel. It is not apathy or coldness. It is the discipline to stop handing your power to chaos. It is the ability to separate what you feel from what you do. That single separation changes everything. Life will hand you conflict, loss, disappointment. Most people respond like kindling. They catch fire instantly, then burn out just as fast. Detachment teaches you to pause, to breathe, to measure. That pause is not weakness. It is courage. It is the moment when the storm hits, but you decide whether it sinks you or passes over. I knew a man once accused unfairly in his profession. Every instinct told him to fight loudly, to clear his name in anger, but instead he chose restraint. He said little, waited and kept his dignity intact. Weeks later, the truth rose to the surface, and those who doubted him returned quietly with apologies. His silence had done what shouting never could. That is detachment, not to shield yourself from life, but to keep your ground while life rages around you. One of detachment's greatest gifts is clarity. When emotions run wild, vision blurs. You excuse what you should reject. You justify what you should walk away from. You let your heart drown out your reason, but when you step back, the fog lifts. Red flags turn visible. Patterns emerge. Choices sharpen. You stop choosing from wounds and start choosing from wisdom. Detachment creates space. And in that space, you find discernment. There is a freedom in not reacting to everything. You no longer feel summoned to every argument, every rumor, every provocation. You stop defending yourself against noise that doesn't deserve your breath. People will test you. They will press old buttons, hoping you'll become the old version of yourself, the one desperate to be heard, desperate to be right. But when you detach, you deny them that victory. You've grown beyond it. This is often mistaken for coldness, but detachment is not the absence of care. It is the art of caring without self-destruction. You still love, you still hope, but you no longer let those emotions chain you. You stop trying to control people, outcomes, or perceptions. You focus on the only ground that is truly yours, your thoughts, your choices, your path. In that focus, you discover peace. In relationships, detachment becomes protection. It is not withholding love, it is refusing to lose yourself inside it. It is giving without begging, showing up without attaching your worth to another's reaction. It is finding stability within yourself, so no one else can unbalance you. When you live with detachment, others lose their grip on you. They can no longer bait you, guilt you, or bend you. You sit with discomfort. You master the silence that unsettles those who once controlled you with noise. That is rare strength. And strength like this does not arrive overnight. It is forged in fire. Each trial, each test, each moment you chose calm over chaos. Over time, detachment becomes your natural state. You stop being a servant to emotion. You become its master. That mastery is quiet but undeniable. People can sense it, even if they can't explain it. You walk into storms and remain steady. You move through chaos and stay composed. You live not at the mercy of waves, but as the one holding the wheel. And from here, the path sharpens. The journey is no longer about avoiding emotion. It is about ensuring emotion never controls you again. Entering the 7th chapter, picture this. The storm is raging. Words are sharp, tempers flare, the air itself seems to tremble. Yet inside you there is stillness, not numbness, not apathy, but mastery. The calm born of knowing what deserves your reaction and what does not. Life will always test you. Disrespect, uncertainty, sudden loss. Most believe strength is loud, that it shouts back, strikes hard and shakes the walls. But true strength is quieter. It is the center that holds when the edges collapse. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Calmness is not pretending you're untouched. It is refusing to let the fleeting dictate the lasting. I once knew a man insulted in a crowded meeting, called incompetent, mocked before all. Every eye turned to him, expecting fury. He smiled, wrote something in his notebook, and continued. Later, he told me, if I'd fought back, I would have been playing his game, not mine. Weeks later, the same man who insulted him came back with an apology. His calm had killed the insult without a word. Calm is the pause that resets the board, the breath that turns chaos into clarity. Most fill it with regret, words spilled too fast, anger thrown too soon. But if you can hold it, if you can breathe, you shift from reflex to clarity. In a world addicted to instant reaction, the one who pauses owns the moment. This is no weakness. It is discipline. The discipline to slow your breath when your heart is racing, to soften your tone when anger rises, to stand tall when pride wants to collapse. Calmness becomes a shield. The more you practice it, the stronger it grows. And soon, calm is no longer a tool you reach for in crisis. It becomes who you are, not because you feel less, but because you have mastered what once mastered you. From here, the challenge changes, not simply staying calm when tested, but using that calm to move mountains without ever raising your voice. From here, let us step into the 8th chapter. There comes a moment when you realize that explaining yourself over and over is like pouring water into sand. No matter how much you give, it never fills. The more you justify, the more strength you lose. Some will never need an explanation. They already understand your heart. Others will never accept one. They've already decided who they believe you are. And so Marcus Aurelius reminds us, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Your life is not a trial. You are not standing before a jury every time someone questions your path. The urge to explain often grows from insecurity, from the craving to be accepted, approved, forgiven. But when your worth is tied to agreement, you become a prisoner to opinions. You bend and twist to fit their comfort, forgetting that your direction was never theirs to validate. Freedom begins when you stop offering your soul as something for others to dissect. I once knew a woman who left a secure career to pursue art. At first, she explained to everyone, her friends, her family, even strangers. But the more she explained, the more doubts she absorbed. Finally, she stopped. She let her work speak. And in time, the same people who doubted her began asking her for guidance. She hadn't convinced them with words. She had convinced them with her life. When you stop explaining, you protect your peace. You no longer spend hours replaying conversations, defending every move. You act in silence and your results become your voice. Let them speculate. Let them talk. Your task is simpler. Stay aligned. Silence is not arrogance. It is self-respect. It says, I know who I am, and I don't need your agreement for it to be true. The truth does not become false because it is misunderstood. Your intentions do not lose value because they are unseen. There is strength in being unbothered by misinterpretation. In that strength, you trade performance for authenticity. You speak less, you build more. And in that quiet, you discover a peace so deep that no misunderstanding can shake it. And from this quiet ground, the next step emerges, not to convince the world, but to keep living in such a way that your life itself tells the story no words ever could. At this stage, imagine this, a memory so heavy it colors everything you see. You wake, and it's there. You work, and it lingers. You laugh, but beneath it, the weight remains. The wrong is over, yet it still owns you. That is the chain of unforgiveness. It binds you to the past, keeping you in waters you were meant to leave. Most see forgiveness as weakness, as surrender, as letting someone off the hook. But the Stoics saw it differently. Seneca wrote, "How much better to heal than to seek revenge from injury." Forgiveness is not excusing, it is freeing. It is not for them, it is for you. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is looking directly at the wound, naming it, and then deciding it will not dictate your future. The past cannot be rewritten, but your relationship to it can. And that shift is not mercy for the one who hurt you, it is liberation for yourself. I once spoke with a woman betrayed by her closest friend. For years, she replayed every detail, and the sting haunted her trust. One day, she wrote a letter. She never sent it. She burned it. In the ashes, she buried the story she had carried too long. She didn't reconcile. She didn't return to the friendship. But she was lighter, freer, calmer. That is forgiveness, a private revolution no one else can take from you. To forgive does not mean to reopen the door. It is entirely possible to forgive and still walk away, to forgive and keep your boundaries firm. Forgiveness is inward. Reconciliation is outward. They are not the same. And here is the truth. Unforgiveness festers. It shortens your patience, sharpens your anger, weighs your spirit down. You drag the past into the present and wonder why everything feels heavy. Forgiveness cleans the lens. It restores vision. The strongest people I've known were not those untouched by betrayal. They were those who refused to let it harden them. They chose to heal, not to hate. And in that choice, they became untouchable by bitterness. Forgiveness is the quiet removal of chains, link by link, until you walk free. And once free, you do not return. You step forward into life unburdened. That is self-liberation. This is where the 10th chapter opens. Imagine standing in the middle of chaos, not because the world has grown gentler, but because you have grown stronger. The winds howl, the ground shakes, yet something in you refuses to move. That is what it means to live unshakable. It is not numbness, it is not denial, it is mastery. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That is the fortress, the realization that while you cannot command the storm, you can hold the wheel. Emotions arrive, fear, anger, uncertainty, but they are signals, not commands. And when you learn to treat them as such, you step out of the role of passenger and into the role of captain. I once met a man who lost his business overnight. Most expected panic, rage, collapse. Instead, he sat with the facts, quiet and steady. He told me later, the loss wasn't the storm. It was the wind that showed me which routes were real. Months later, he had built something even stronger. His calm didn't erase the challenge, it transformed it. Living unshakable means reclaiming all the energy you once spent defending yourself, fearing rejection, dreading failure. That energy becomes fuel for building, for growing, for living with intention. You stop drifting, you stop scattering yourself in reaction to every opinion. And the result is clarity. Focus sharpens, distractions fade. The paradox is this. When you stop letting the world shake you, the world does not quiet down, but you do, and that stillness becomes your power. You become the one people look to when everything else falls apart, not because you roar louder, but because you stand steadier. This is the strength that lasts. Not the roar of victory, but the silence of composure. When you live unshakable, you no longer ask, will the storm pass? You already know it will. The greater question is, will I remain standing when it does? And from here, the next step emerges, not just to endure unshaken, but to lead others into the same calm strength that has become your foundation. When the words and actions of others no longer hold power over you, something shifts. You step free from the invisible prison of seeking approval. You stop twisting yourself to fit expectations that were never yours. Instead, you walk with clarity, guided by values that are truly your own. That is where authenticity begins, and where real freedom takes root. If this message touched something in you, share a simple comment saying, "Inner calm." Let it be your reminder that strength is built in silence and carried in how you live each day. And if you wish to keep walking this path of discipline and clarity, consider subscribing so every step forward is supported by wisdom waiting for you. Your next chapter is not left to chance. It is written by choice. Choose peace, choose strength, and let the next lesson guide you even deeper.